Now, the world-famous London Design Biennale is back, showcasing world-leading design, innovation, creativity and research by exhibitors from across the globe. The three-week international exhibition features curated installations, including the Nigerian pavilion, a bold exploration of identity, memory and collective creation. It's the only African pavilion at the Biennale this year, and it uses storytelling, design and technology to examine how Nigerians in particular, and more broadly Africans, are shaping and reshaping themselves in the face of history, modernity and future possibilities. Sounds interesting, doesn't it? Let's take a brief look at a video of the Nigerian pavilion.
This act of collective creation and also the spirituality that this community has. There's a lot of practice they do. They don't really understand why they're doing it, like singing songs together, doing dances together before they create things. Create an artifact together, basically.
Oh, wow.
So release hands, release, and then touch again. Flags are the remnants from iron ore production. And not many people know this, but they have really advanced techniques.
Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line from London by the producer of the Nigerian Pavilion at the 2025 London Design Biennale, Itohan Ndubuka. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us. I mean, it looks jolly interesting, doesn't it? I mean, that must have taken a lot of work to put that together.
I mean, yes, it's been a very, very long journey. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. But yeah, we've been working on this project since February of last year, and it has been a commitment of just time and just passion. We've had the most amazing team of designers, of project managers who've all come together really to just ensure that we've got the funding and also just the commitment we've needed to make this a reality.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it sounds really interesting, but just tell us a bit more about it, because as much as it sounds interesting, it sounds quite complex. And if you could break it down to sort of the level of sort of ordinary people like me, it would be very helpful. Just tell us a bit about what is actually being featured in that pavilion and the story there.
So, I'll start with saying a bit more about the London Design Biennale. Unlike your typical sort of biennales, which are focused on art or design or architecture, the London Design Biennale is this amazing sort of melting pot where you have countries from all over the world gather to basically share new ideas which can change the world. For us, the idea that we chose to focus on was, how do we tell a new story about Africa, about Nigeria? Now, for the longest time, Nigeria has been, not just Nigeria, but Africa was seen as sort of being the recipients of sort of technological advancement from the West. But then we found this really interesting location, Leja, in Enugu State. Leja is the oldest known iron ore smelting site in the world, and this exists in Nigeria. It exists right at our doorstep, but not many people know about Leja. And so this pavilion was really a project that focused on bringing in technology into that storytelling, into that African storytelling, and looking at how, we have this ownership of advanced metallurgy practices that we have that's existed pre-colonialism over 4,000 years ago, we're talking about now. So this pavilion brought together a really talented designer, Miles Igwebuke, who was the curator and the designer. We also brought together another gentleman, Chidi Nwabani, who also helped us with the digital elements and the interactive elements as well within the pavilion. And just bringing all together to tell a story of Africa that's not an Africa that's a recipient of technology, but Africa who has a history and a culture and traditions of really advanced techniques dating back to our origins, really, and to Leja also being this sort of home to ancient civilization. So the project basically went on from there to engage cultural collaborators across the rest of Nigeria. We started looking at cultural objects and the significance of like collective creation. We then had these objects in display in the space using technology as well. And then we also were able to create this amazing map of ledger that is the most detailed map of ledger that currently exists, and brought together resources from partners like Center for Memories to really just tell a story of just a beautiful story of our history and our traditions, but in a really futures focused way.
I mean, it just sounds amazing. And looking at the pictures, and you seem to have had quite a big sort of turnout there. A lot of people curious about what you're doing and so on. I understand the Nigerian government, the Ministry of Culture, also sort of threw their leverage into the fray there, did they?
Yes, so this was the first pavilion that actually was endorsed by the Federal Ministry of Arts, Culture, Tourism, and the Creative Economy. I think that's a huge step. I think especially with design, design is a tricky one sometimes because people don't necessarily understand the importance of design and how it fits into sort of wider narratives. But I mean, design is present in how we live and how we remember, how we imagine, how we build. There's so many different sorts of arms for design. So to have the ministry, you know, step behind us and say, hey, we're going to give you the endorsement, I think is the first step of future collaborations with the ministries and future sorts of like positive responses from people when it comes to these kind of design initiatives, because African designers are really, really doing a lot on that global stage as well. And I think it's time that we start investing in them and we start telling their stories and we start giving them global platforms to make sure that we are also involved in these global conversations and charting global history as well through our design.
Indeed. So what happens next? I mean, this exhibition runs till, I believe, the 29th of June, and then what happens after that?
So, I mean, a lot of exciting conversations in the last over the last weekend since the exhibition opened. As you're probably aware, the Nigeria Pavilion was one out of 5 pavilions that received a special mention or an award at the award ceremony by the jury for the Biennale. This is a huge accomplishment. I mean, considering one, we're the only African pavilion, and two, you know, we're relatively new to this Biennale. So to receive this sort of acknowledgement of how powerful that pavilion was, I think was fantastic for us. We plan to take the pavilion to the Middle East and then also bring it back to Nigeria. We really want people in Nigeria to be able to experience this piece of work. We think it's such a fantastic, inspiring piece of work that really does stretch the imagination in terms of what is actually capable from African designers, from Nigerian designers, which is a huge part of what my company, Culture Lab Africa, is trying to do. We're shifting those narratives and providing more opportunities for our creatives and our designers globally.
So basically, as you said, I mean, it's not the easiest thing to understand, but I mean, and it's very interesting, I mean, visually very interesting, but it's also, I mean, it sounds very intellectually and aesthetically stimulating. And essentially what you do is connecting African heritage with innovation.
Yes. Exactly. And I mean, if in the videos you'll see of the space, just to explain what's actually going on in the space, you have this installation and people are able to basically create these cultural objects in real time simply by human touch. So you have, I mean, and it was such a powerful experience because you had people who were in that room who were looking at that screen and they would hold the cultural objects, which were these reimagined ogene instruments. And then simply by touching hands with the person next to them, they were able to create these cultural objects on the screen in front of them. And I mean, that was just like, I think for us to have been able to accomplish that, it was a fantastic experience. And I'm so proud of the work that the entire team has done on this, our very talented designers as well. It was just, I mean, it was a great project to lead and to see just come to life in this way. And also very emotional. We had a lady who came into the space and she burst into tears because she was very sort of taken aback by how, you know, beautiful the display was of heritage You probably can't hear the sounds in the space as well, but we had this amazing sort of instrumental as well that provided a great soundscape as well.
It sounds absolutely amazing. And I have to say, looking at the pictures, I'm enormously impressed. And I mean, for you, I think in your write-up, you mentioned that the project is deeply personal. You're a design leader, you're a cultural entrepreneur, you're an advocate for African futures. I'll ask you the question that you yourself asked. I mean, how do we forge a shared future rooted in indigenous knowledge, at the same time create excellence and forge some kind of collective memory out of all these kinds of things?
We have to keep on telling new stories. We have to keep on telling new stories. We have to think differently and we have to look at things differently. For this project in particular, we told the story of Nigeria through a lens that it's not usually told through, right? And the results were spectacular. So, I mean, it's all about following the brilliance. I spoke to the author, Ben Okri, a few weeks ago, and he just did a compilation of books, and he said, follow the brilliance, don't stick to the norms, don't stick to what's expected of you, and that's where you find the beauty. And I think we did just that with this pavilion, and the results speak for themselves.
Well, I mean, you mentioned Ben Okri there. He's one of my favorite Nigerian writers. I mean, I never forget The Famished Road. I read it, and as somebody wrote in sort of the back of the book, I felt like I could see angels sitting on trees. But look, I want to congratulate you, Itohan. Really brilliant stuff you've done there. And of course, you've pushed Nigeria's name very high. London Design Biennale is a very, very specialized and very famous design biennale, and I'm glad you got us a pavilion there, the Nigerian pavilion. Itohan Ndubuka is the producer of the Nigerian pavilion at the 2025 London Design Biennale. Thank you very much indeed. Good to talk with you.
Thank you.